Today we're going to talk to Kirk Bonds.
The first year Kirk shot 3D was 2018. He won the ASA Oklahoma State Championship in Bow Novice, as well as the Deerman World Championship. In 2019, Kirk won the ASA Texas State Championship, as well as the Deerman Texas State Championship. Kirk took second place in the Deerman Oklahoma State Championship, and for the second year running, won the Deerman World Championship, all in open class.
So yeah, he's kind of a badass. Okay, overly dramatic intro. Check. On to the interview.
We were at the San Antonio Total Archery Challenge, and my start time was the exact same time as Kirk's and his wife, and that was how we met. Like, I literally just got out of the van, and I saw them walking up, and I was like, hey, do you guys care if we shoot together? And they were like, nope, come on out. And Kirk definitely was the best archer at the Total Archery Challenge that day. I would have put him up against anybody else. So it's amazing, and it's hilarious that we were able to get together and then and have that experience and then form this, this friendship over the last, however many months it's been. So that's how we met, which is, it's just hilarious to me. I could have been partnered with any number of goons and goobers, and I got put up with you. So that was
yeah, that was in the cards for sure.
It seemed to be. So Kirk, when did you? I want you to tell us your archery story. Like, how did you get started doing? Give me from the start here.
Oh, well, I started archery hunting when I was in high school, and a guy named Craig Maxwell that worked for my dad was a big hunter, archery hunter, muzzleload hunter. And he actually introduced me to archery, and we started practicing. And, that was before had sights and range finders. So
were you shooting on a stick bow, on a compound?
It was a compound. It was a PSE was my first bow. But it was compound bow, no sights, no range finder. So we would get out in the backyard and practice religiously every day. And right before hunting season, I was in Hobbs, New Mexico. So right before the mule deer season for New Mexico, I was out in the backyard shooting. My little brother walks out with his little fiberglass recurve and fiberglass arrows. He said, "Here, shoot this arrow up in the air." So I knocked this fiberglass arrow, drew back, pointed it to the sky, shot. Next thing I know, I had cables wrapped around my head. The bow just exploded. So I'm in this little town of Hobbs going around looking for a left-handed bow for the hunting season the next day.
Yeah, I forgot you were lefty.
Wouldn't riser bear. I went to the mountains. The next morning we left early, and first deer that I saw seemed to me he was a giant, big 4x4. And I jumped him. He ran up the side of the hill, stopped, looked back. I drew back, and I seen it. And I was like, oh, my gosh, I'm going to hit that deer. Well, I hit him right in the antler. And he ran over the hill with my arrow sticking out of his rack. And then I proceeded to miss 10 bucks that weekend. So that was the beginning of my archery career.
Oh, brutal.
But yeah, and so I've been bow hunting for 30 years, and I've always wanted to shoot 3D. I've seen it on TV, and but really never knew how to get into it. Never took the time to get into it, and it's one of those things, in the back of your mind, man, I'm gonna do that someday. But and finally, I was at the bow shop, and Billy Hicks, he's a shooter there at the bow shop shooter, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to Paris tomorrow. You want to go with me, shoot a 3D?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll go." And so that's how I got started. Just somebody invited me, basically.
But that was last year, right? That was you got started super late.
Yeah, super late.
Yeah.
So that was last year, and I shot the first one, and then I was hooked. So started shooting, started asking people at the bow shop, what I need, how I can improve. I got a target bow, a used one, and from Jim Favor there at Gateway Archery. And actually, it was one of Cody's. His son shoots left-handed, so I end up with all his used stuff. But anyway, started shooting last year and shot the Texas State. Didn't do very well at that tournament, and went up to Oklahoma and shot their ASA state championship and won their state championship in Bo Novice. And then shot a couple of Dearman tournaments, which is another circuit out of Oklahoma, and went to their world championship and won it in their average Joe class. So that's kind of beginner classes. So, you know, if you're a beginning archer, there are beginner classes, and you can take your regular hunting rig, your hunting arrows, and go do it. And the thing I was most impressed with about archery is the people. So, you know, they're just great people, like-minded, and they're really willing to help.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And so anyway, I progressed and got a better bow beginning of this year, and started shooting open class and in Dearman and ASA started shooting the hunter class, which is pins, and won the ASA state championship in the senior hunter, because I'm 50, so the senior class begins at 50.
Old
yeah,
guy.
right, the old guys. So and then I shot the Texas State Championship Dearman, and I won it. And then I went to Oklahoma and shot their Oklahoma State Championship, got second. And then last weekend I shot their World Championship and won it. So I've been blessed. It's been a crazy ride, but
it's amazing though. Like so essentially you were self-taught for 2.5 decades, 3 decades, and then you decided to start getting into the actual competitions, and you started winning right off the bat. So
yeah, and you know, I was self-taught, and I always thought I was a pretty good archer because, you know, you shoot with your friends at the deer lease and on hunts, you know, everybody shoots. And I've always pushed the limit. And I think that's one thing that's helped me because, you know, I always practice out to 100 and beyond yards. So I think that's, you know, extend your limits and push the limit. And I'll tell you some stories on the what that's done for me over the years in hunting. But anyway, I'm kind of self-taught. And then when I started shooting 3D and started talking to these really good archers like Billy Hicks and Jim Favor and Marty Chambers, you know, those guys are legends.
yeah.
But anyway, I realized what I was doing wrong, so I kind of had to relearn a lot of things. So, you know,
let's dive deeper into that a little bit. I think I'm curious about that too. Give me some of the things that you had to relearn as you started talking to these guys that were pros.
The most important thing that I've had is the release. You know, I always shot an index finger release.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I shot, well, you know, you develop target panic, and everybody does it. And so, you know, you kind of peak, then you develop that panic, and then it just goes to hell in a handbasket.
Yes.
And then you have to get over that. And so I started shooting a hinge, started shooting a thumb button. I started practicing with resistance release. And, you know, that's something the guys showed me at the bow shop. And so I got over that target panic, and then now I'm working on the handle and the grip. So, but that's what I had to relearn was the release and the grip. And, you know, I'm just now getting to where I know what a good release is supposed to feel like. And that just takes time to develop. And So I'm still learning, still getting better, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So
yeah.
where did you land? Like, what are you using now in your actual 3D setup? Are you using a hinge or a thumb? What are you using?
I'm using, well, that release that you showed me there in San Antonio, that Stand Perfects,
Yeah, nice.
and I'm shooting that now. And I shot yours a little bit there, and so I love that release. And whenever I'm practicing, if I feel like I'm getting a little punchy at practice, I'll go out in the backyard and shoot a little bit with a Evo, which is a resistance release, and that helps you develop and feel what the proper release is supposed to feel like.
Yeah, that
So,
tension I think is it's so easy once you get up to a certain point where you're holding and you say, okay, good, I'm good and solid on the target now. Because I think once you develop those muscles, then you really start getting into wanting to be punchy because you see that pin right there where you want that arrow to go, and then and then you decline. And everybody does the same thing. Like we all have gone through this exact same thing. And obviously, that's one of the things that was in that video we were talking about. I wish I would have learned back tension and understood the function of back tension earlier.
Yeah.
Did you do any blind bail stuff, or do you ever do blind bail?
A little bit, not a lot, but yeah, I'll just go on the back porch, and I've got a big target there, and I'll just draw, close my eyes, and practice the relay. Just getting the feel for knowing what a good versus a bad release feels like.
I need to do that a lot more. I always just start the same way. I walk out to 70 or 80 yards and I just start shooting and just let the groups get tighter as I get warmed up. But I can tell that it's time for me to start blind bailing again. I'm getting a little shaky, before the season here. I can tell that I don't know. So much of this sport is mental, and I can tell that I'm starting to dive down a little bit right now.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So tell me about your home setup. You said that you've got, that, and that was one of the things that was the most impressive when you were out in San Antonio was your ability to put huge shots downrange. I mean, the buffalo that was out at 140 yards, you nailed it every single time. Like you were able to, you knew exactly you knew your gear exactly where you needed to be at 140 yards.
Right.
So tell me about your practice setup at your house.
Well, that buffalo was 162, actually.
162.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I've got a long range at my house, and like I said, I practice at 160, 180 yards a lot. And, once you shoot that far, 80 yards is a chip shot, after you've stretched it out like that. So, yeah, I mean, I've got 5 acres, so I've got an area where I can get back and shoot. And, the wind is a huge factor in the arrow. So get out and shoot in the wind, and like my wife shot an antelope at 111 yards, and she practices with me, and I told her, I said, give him a foot of wind drift. So had a slight breeze, and so she pinwheeled him. So just getting familiar with how that arrow's going to act, in a big headwind, sometimes you have to add 5 yards to your sight because of the wind drag. So,
yeah, so tell me about do you have a 3D target set out, or do you have bags, or what do you have out there?
I've got bags. I wish I had 3D targets, but maybe someday I'll get some. I know.
I want you to buy the Sasquatch and stick it out there at 200 yards.
Right. They weren't so dang expensive. I'd have all of them. But.
And the big ones are so expensive. Like you get into the big full size elk, and it's $1,000, $1,200.
Yeah, crazy. Yep.
So, can you talk a little bit about the different classes inside of 3D and kind of give me some insight into, into the different categories, because they basically, it's by age of the participant and then the gear. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Goes by ages, and then they'll have hunter classes, which are 12-inch and under stabilizers out front, and in the back can't stick past your string. And then pins is a hunter class. And then you go to open class, which is any length stabilizers, and that's the ones you usually see on TV, where they've got the 72-inch or for however long they are, giant, and scopes on the sights, and scope and lenses in their peeps, and so that's open class.
So in a hunter class, you're not allowed to put a lens in.
In let's see, it's 19 to 50. You're not, but after 50, they'll let you put a lens in for hunter class because our eyes get so bad.
Well, I mean, 50 if you're shooting at something this big,
Yeah.
Without a lens, you're guessing.
So yeah, those are the classes. So whatever you are, whatever stage of archery you're in, there's a class for you.
Yeah.
Do it.
So even though it seems like on the websites that I've looked at, it seems really complicated. Like there's a lot of different categories you can get into. But it sounds like basically if you have a hunting bow and you want to run your hunting bow, then you go show up and you're in the hunter class for your age group. And if you have a target bow, and I assume if you have a target bow and you've got, the stabilizers, like the dudes that walk the tight ropes, that type of thing, that you probably know what you're getting into there anyway. I think that what we're talking about more is people that are like you and I, that are primarily hunters, but that were looking to kind of expand on the hunting experience and get better at that. So
right.
Going out and doing these 3D tournaments is an awesome way to do that.
Yeah, and just show up and tell them what you've got, show them your bow, and they'll tell you what class to get in. And everybody there will bend over backwards to help you. So.
Yeah, as long as you're nice. I mean, that's the experience. Every one of these things that I've ever gone to, everybody's super nice and super helpful. And that's great. So let's get into the hunting side a little bit more. What is, like, when you think back on your favorite hunt or your favorite like shooting experience on one animal with a bow, does one come to mind?
Actually, a lot of them come to mind. I was thinking about that a little earlier, and really, what makes them come to mind to me, what makes them memorable, is a longer shot, because of the degree of how hard it is.
Yeah.
So degree of difficulty, that's the word I'm looking for. But they're usually a follow-up shot is why I shoot at an animal a super long way. And one time I shot at a mule deer in the sand dunes, and as I was squeezing, he sees me and he turns to square up to look at me, and right as the shot broke, I shot right where his vitals were, and he's pointing at me now. So the whole group breaks and runs, and so I run to the edge of the dunes, and they stopped to look back, and I ranged, and he was 130, and so I slid the sliders sight down and pinwheeled him. So, of course, that's a memorable hunt.
No joke.
And another one, a friend of mine, John Thompson in Kansas, we were hunting together, and we saw a buck cross into a place that he owned. So we made the mile around and got in front of the buck, grunted as he was coming down the creek. Well, he comes to us on a string, and I shot, kind of the same deal. He turns, so when he sees me draw, and I hit him kind of in the crease of the neck, and he runs out in the field and stops, and I'm knocking another arrow, and John said, he's 170 yards. And I was like, oh, crap. I slid my sight down. You know, I'm responsible for this animal now because I've already stuck an arrow in him, so I got to kill him now. So I slid my sight down to 160, and I drew, and I'm sitting there going, well, foot over his back, foot of wind drift, you know, here it goes. He goes, wait. He's 140. I misranged him. I was like, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, because you got that way.
So I slid it back up to 140, gave him a foot of wind drift, shot, and finished him off. So that's where those long shots come into play. And so you can finish the job, where if you hadn't have been practicing at those longer shots, you know, you just have to sit there and watch him.
117-yard caribou. Dead eye. It's 160 and a half.
I thought it was 162.
I've heard different things throughout the day, but if you're ranging one, whatever you just said right there, that's what I'd go with.
You went right over his head.
I hit him.
That was a thunk right
I
there.
thought you went right over his head.
No, I heard rubber. And 62-yard buffalo. I think all of them would have worked. Man.
I think a lot of people question the ethics of shooting a long shot on an animal. And what you're talking about is, I mean, both of these examples were follow-up shots. So obviously you're making sure that animal's still standing and you want to put them down.
Right.
But the other thing is, I watched you hit the caribou at 111 yards in a space. It was a tennis ball size. You know, the 12 ring on that caribou was a tennis ball, and you said, that's what I'm aiming at, and you nailed it. And that was again, I was so impressed with the long shots that day. I mean, it was obvious that was what you and your wife had taken so much time to do. You guys were both unbelievable past 100 yards. So obviously there's a lot of, let's talk about your setup for doing that type of distance. And when we were in San Antonio, you were shooting the Montana black gold 7-pin slide?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that what you're still using?
Yep. I've been using that sight for a long time. And, you know, I'm a gear junkie, so
Yeah.
see my hunting room that I have. I've got, you know, stuff that I've used, and like I noticed you were giving stuff away. That's what I need to do.
Oh, good. You can send it to me and I'll give it away for you.
Yeah. So I've tried it all, and you know, it's a game of trial and error when you're looking for the best equipment.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that slider sight with the multiple pin in it, and then use your bottom pin as your reference for the extended yardage. That's the best setup I've found.
So explain, give people a little bit more detail on how the actual sight operates, because it's a little it's on the rarer side of scopes to me. It's not your standard, you know, just, you know, fixed 5-pin or a fixed 7-pin or a fixed 3-pin with a you know, I had an IQ that you could slide the bottom pin by itself within the housing, but this is a little different. So tell people.
Yeah. I mean, the initial setup, you have your 5 or 6, 7 pins, however many you want to cram in there. But I start out at 25 yards. I go 25, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90 in mine. And then once you exceed that 90 yards, then you turn the knob. It actually drops the scope housing, and then you keep aiming off of that bottom pin. So, and then you look on your dial at your yardages.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the cool part about that setup is even with my FMJs, which I'm shooting for elk season coming up, which I'm at, pushing 560 grains, I can easily with plenty of clearance back up to 110 yards and make that shot happen. So, but I'm about maxed at 110 because I'm using such a heavy arrow. So tell me about your arrow setup that you're using for hunting right now.
I use the Victory VAP arrow. That arrow penetrates phenomenally. Just give you an example. My wife shoots 48 pounds, and we both had bull elk tags in New Mexico. She shot a bull elk with pass-throughs. She shot him 3 times, 40, 50, and 60 yards with that VAP arrow and a 65 grain broadhead. And her total arrows setup's like right under 300 grains. So
wow,
not much, but those arrows penetrate really good.
So is it a 4 millimeter diameter? I can't remember. It's a narrow diameter. It's not a full set.
Yeah. I don't know the millimeter. It's 166 thousandths is the size of the arrow. But I shoot the Victory VAP 300 with a 100 grain broadhead, and I like the Grim Reaper broadheads. And for elk, I shoot the Fatal Steel. It's an 1.25 inch cut, so it's a small cut when you're comparing it to mechanical standards, but it's still bigger than your fixed blades, and it flies like a dart. So it's the best of both worlds. And it's 400 grain arrow, and I'm shooting it I've got the new Matthews Verdict, so I've got it turned to the 75 pounds, the 75 pound mod in it. So it shoots pretty quick. It's like 320 feet a second. So that allows me to really extend my range.
Yeah. I just don't trust myself past, I definitely don't think I'm taking a shot at an elk past 70. So I don't want that. I don't want the ability in the gear to do it. So I'm just
right. If you need a follow-up shot, it's there if you need it,
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
We always shoot elk at under 50 yards. And I've got a video where I shot an elk at 50 yards with that VAP arrow and that Grim Reaper broadhead. Hit him in the front shoulder. I was the caller and the shooter, so it was coming at me. Hit him in the front shoulder. It went all the way through, hit his femur, and broke the femur.
You showed me that when we were down in San Antonio, and it was amazing. I mean, that thing went all the way through, blew through that shoulder and demolished that rear femur. So, I mean, it's going through, feet of organs inside of this thing. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's always the fight online is, am I using a heavy arrow? Am I using a light arrow? Am I using a mechanical? Am I using a fixed blade? And everybody's got their own opinions,
Right.
So, but obviously it's working for you, Yeah,
I think most of those people voicing their opinions hadn't been there and done that. But, once you get as many animals under your belt as I've been fortunate enough to kill, I know what works, and we put a lot of meat in the freezer with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about tell me just real quick, since everybody can see it here, tell me about that lower deer there in the background.
That's a Saskatchewan buck. Killed him about 3 or 4 years ago. And he's a beast. He's got 60 inches of mass and scores 260. And, it's crazy. I was sitting in a pop-up, and I'm glassing around looking, and I look, and there's 2 deer in front of me. They use, I don't know what they bait with, some kind of barley or something. But anyway, these 2 deer were there, and both their heads were down, and one raised his head, and he was about 160-inch deer. And I'm like, wow, that's a good buck right there. I probably need to shoot this buck. So I'm gathering my bow up, and then that sucker raises his head, and I was like, oh my gosh. I just drew. I mean, he could have had one side broke off for all I know.
No
I
joke.
just, I just drew, set the pin on behind his shoulder and shot. And I didn't even know how big he was. I just knew he was unbelievable. And so anyway, yeah.
He's incredible. I mean, just from here, like, yeah, that's an unreal specimen. Super.
Yeah, that's buck of a lifetime for sure.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. So, is there anything else that you want to say? That you want to put in here that's going to end up on the YouTubes?
No, not really. I mean, I just want to reiterate, just go to a good shop and let them set your bow up correctly. Like I use Gateway Archery in Fort Worth, Texas. So if you're in this area, go see Jim. He's the best bow tech in the country. And go to the shop, meet some guys. If you've never shot 3D, ask one of the guys that shoot, a shop shooter, if you can go with them, or can I meet you there? You can show me the ropes. And
Yeah.
they'll be glad to do it.
Yeah, awesome. Overall, it's just about getting out there and just saying, I'm going to commit, and I'm going to sign up, and I'm going to get there, and I'm just going to figure it out, knowing that you're going to be nervous. And I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I remember what it felt like getting out of the truck the first time I pulled up at one. I was just like, oh man. And then
Right.
I was like, it's going to be fine. Like, I'm just going to walk in here. I don't know. There's that whole, like, it's like walking into the lunchroom in junior high, holding your tray by yourself, just looking around for your friend group and, feeling like everybody's staring at you, but no one cares. Just
Right.
show up and go shoot, go be a part of the community.
That's right. You're there to have a good time, and so is everybody else. So
That's exactly right. Awesome. Well, Kirk, thank you so much for talking to me today, and I really appreciate you sharing a lot of the wisdom and the knowledge. And I had a blast shooting with you in San Antonio, and hopefully we'll get to come out in November, and I'll get to video you guys chasing around some mule deer.
oh yeah, that'd be great. We'll do it for sure.
Awesome. All right, we'll talk to you later then, Kirk.
All right, thanks.
All right, man.
So thanks a ton to Kirk for doing the interview. It's awesome to have people that you can talk to that know so much more than you do and really be able to kind of take it in and learn things. Go out and shoot some 3D. Like, just stop watching this video right now and go find a tournament in your local area and sign up for that sucker and go do some shooting. Thanks again, guys, for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm Brandon with RBM Archery.